Hello, I'm Dr. Thompson, the instructor of the DeTsquare OET Academy. Um, Today we'll be discussing common mistakes in OET letter writing. And you know your letter writing, it can either be a transfer, a referral, or discharge letters. Sometimes we tend to make a lot of mistakes in these writings, ranging from grammatical errors, the genre and style. In this series of lectures, this will be the first episode, and as time goes on, other episodes will be released. If you are visiting my channel for the first time, I would advise you hit the subscribe button below. Hit the subscribe button below, and so that whenever I release any video and other episodes, you will be the first to be notified. Now, let's quickly get into our discussion today. The first error we are going to correct, of which is quite a common error that some candidates they make whenever they are writing, is having a mismatch between verb tenses and time references. Sometimes we'll make sentences and the verbs we are using, they are not in line with the time reference that we are using. Well, we are going to take some examples here. Now, I just take a short from my YouTube channel, the DeTsquare OET Academy. If you are following me on YouTube and you always visit the community section of the YouTube, you will discover that every day I release questions, quiz that can help you to boost your writing. Okay. Now, this was one of the questions I released 3 weeks ago, and the question says choose the correct sentence. If you look at these sentences, A says she was diagnosed with asthma since 1999. She is diagnosed with asthma in 1999. C says she has been diagnosed with asthma in 1999. She has been diagnosed with asthma since 1999. E, she has been diagnosed with asthma since 1999. Now, if you look at these sentences, these are the type of sentences that some candidates they construct in their writing. I've seen all these sentences from my students' writings, their letter writing that I used to assess. They sometimes construct these types of sentences. You will see all varieties of sentences. As you can see here, only one of these sentences is actually correct. Others are wrong because the verbs used there, they are not in line with the time reference. For instance, okay, let's explain them in this next um, slide. Look at the first sentence. She was diagnosed with asthma since 1999. Now, when you use this past tense, she was diagnosed with asthma since 1999. Now saying she was diagnosed, and you are now also writing since 1999. You see, this time reference and this your verb tense, they are not in line. They didn't match at all. So the right thing you have to say is she was diagnosed with asthma in 1999. So whenever you are using a simple past tense, whenever you are using a simple past tense or a simple past tense or a simple present tense, using a time reference, it should be a particular time reference that you are going to use. Now, if you are using a simple past, it should be a particular time reference in the past. We are not going to use a range of time because when you say since 1999, since 1999 means a range of time. That means it started from 1999 and now we are in 2021. That means till now. That's what it means. So when you say she was diagnosed with asthma since 1999, that statement is wrong. It's not correct. So you are supposed to use a point in time for a simple past. So when you say was diagnosed, that means you are looking for a point in time. So the right thing to now say is that she was diagnosed with asthma in 1999. That would be the right thing to say. Now let's look at the second statement. She is diagnosed with asthma in 1999. She is diagnosed with asthma in 1999. This statement too is not also correct. Even the verb is even wrong with the time reference. So what you are supposed to say is that because you are referring to 1999, it should be was, because in the past you cannot be saying is diagnosed. So it should be was diagnosed with asthma in 1999. Now let's look at this next statement. This next statement is a present perfect tense. She has been diagnosed with asthma in 1999. This statement now is wrong because you are using a present perfect tense. And when do you use a present perfect tense? When what we are referring to was in the past and still in the present. Do you understand? So this person has been diagnosed with asthma, meaning the person is still having asthma. All right. So you cannot say she has been diagnosed with asthma in 1999. That would be wrong because you are using a point reference in the past. You are supposed to use a range because it started from the past and now in the present. So you are supposed to say she has been diagnosed with asthma since 1999. That would be the correct time reference for this present perfect tense. She has been diagnosed. Okay, these are some of the small mistakes, small errors that we make in our writing, and we wouldn't know that the sentence we've constructed, they are not actually correct. Now let's look at the last statement. She has had asthma in 1999. She has had asthma in 1999. She has had is a present perfect tense, meaning what you're trying to say is that this person had asthma in the past and now is still having asthma. So you cannot say she had asthma and now using a point in time in the past for it. When you use a point in time in the past for it, you've negated the verb tense, which is a present perfect tense that you use here, which this verb is telling you that is in the past and also is in the present. Is a present perfect. It started in the past and has continued to the present. That's what this verb is telling you here. So the right thing to use is she has had asthma for 22 years. So you can calculate from 1999 till now is 22 years. So you will say she had asthma for 22 years. That means for the past 22 years, the patient has had this asthma. All right, let's see look at another question that I released to on the same topic 3 weeks ago. Now look at this question. All these statements are correct except one. All these statements are correct except one. If you look at the first option, she has been living with osteoarthritis for 5 years. Now, has been living with. This is a present perfect continuous tense or a present perfect progressive tense. You get. So meaning that it started in the past, is still present, and is still continuing to be. So usually you use this type of tenses for chronic illnesses. She has been living with osteoarthritis for 5 years. Look at the question. The question says you should choose only all the statements are correct except one. Now, which one is not correct? If you look at the first statement, it is correct because this present perfect continuous tense, the tense is in agreement with the time reference for 5 years. For 5 years is a range. You can say for the past 5 years is a range. So it's in agreement with it. So this is correct. She has had osteoarthritis for 5 years. This is a present perfect tense. This is a present perfect continuous tense. This is a present perfect tense. So for present perfect tense and present perfect continuous tense, you use a range of time, not just a point in time. So here, this is also correct because we said she has had osteoarthritis for 5 years. We are giving a range of time. Look at the third statement. She was diagnosed with osteoarthritis in 2016. This is a past tense. So we are now going to use just a point in time for it and not a time range. So you cannot say since 2016 or she was diagnosed with osteoarthritis for 5 years. You can't say something like that because um, it's just a simple past tense. So it should be a point in time that you use. So, but this statement is correct because we are using a point in time. We are saying in 2016 is a point in time. Now, let's look at this statement. She was diagnosed with osteoarthritis since 2016. This is the only statement that is wrong. This statement is not correct because we are using a simple past and now we are saying we are now using a time range since 2016. So this option is the wrong option. So you don't make statements like this. These two, the verb and the time reference, they are not in agreement. Okay, now let's look at this. Okay, this I released this one 5 days ago. I would advise you to always visit my community section. Every day I release questions that will help you, and I tend to explain them in details after 24 hours of releasing the question. So if you look at this now, this question says choose the correct statement. You have to choose the correct statement. A says A, the first statement, he is hypertensive since 2009. This is just a simple present, so there's no need adding any time reference. When writing a simple reference, you don't add time reference. You don't say he smokes alcohol since 2009. That's wrong. Here now, say he is hypertensive. This person would have just said he is hypertensive and stop instead of saying he is hypertensive since 2009. And if you look at this option now, 18% of the respondents chose this answer, which is wrong. Look at the second one. He was hypertensive since 2009. Was hypertensive. This is a simple past. So as you're using a simple past, you are supposed to use a point in time in the past. But this is a time range. Since 2009 is a time range, meaning from that 2009 till now. So the verb was is not in agreement with since 2009. So this statement is also very wrong. I'm glad nobody chose it. Now let's look at this statement. He has had hypertension since 2009. This statement is correct because this is a present perfect tense, has had. And present perfect tense goes with time range. So we say since 2009. So this statement is correct. 65% got it. If you look at 3 weeks ago, how many percent got the answer? And now 5 days ago, some of them now got the idea. But some persons they still failed it. Now let's look at this one. He has been hypertensive in 2009. This is also very wrong because if you say has been is a present perfect tense, meaning started from the past till now. So you cannot put a point in time. Rather, you will use a range of time. Either you say since 2009 or you say for 22 years. So the same thing also goes in here. Choose the correct statement. Only one of these statements is correct. If you look at number one, she is diabetic for 5 years. That's wrong. Simple present, you don't use time reference. And here they added for 5 years. So that first statement is wrong. Statement number B, she was diabetic for the past 5 years. We are using simple past, was diabetic. Do you get? So, and a lot of things are even wrong with that statement. Diabetes is a chronic illness, so you cannot even be saying was diabetic in 2009 in using a point time in using a point reference. Do you get? But this is actually very wrong by saying for the past 5 years. It does not match with this verb. She has been diabetic in 2016. She has been diabetic in 2016. Now, this is a present perfect tense. Has been diabetic is a present perfect tense. Has been. So, meaning you are supposed to use a time range and not a point in time. So, it should be has been diabetic since 2016. Here, she is diabetic since 2016. She is. We are using simple present and we are saying since 2016. This is also very wrong. If you look at now, 33% of the respondents chose this option. Look at the only correct statement here. She has been diabetic for 5 years. This is a present perfect tense. It goes with a time range. All right, so we'll stop there for a mismatch of verb, tenses, and time references. Let's get into prescription writing. So, when writing a prescription, there are rules that you need to follow. There are rules that you need to follow. You use commas to separate names. You know, sometimes while writing a prescription, it depends on your reader. Sometimes you might want to include the dosages of the drugs. So for such prescriptions, that means you will add the name of the drug and add the dose and the duration. So while writing such prescriptions, that means you have to use a comma to separate the name of the drug from the dose and duration. You use semicolon to separate each prescription. Let's say you have like 4 prescriptions. You have Ramipril, maybe 400 milligram 3 times daily to be taken without water, amlodipine, and so forth, so on and so forth. So for each prescription, when you complete first prescription, you will use a semicolon to separate one prescription from the other. But for the last prescription, we are not going to use a semicolon. We are now going to use and to add the last prescription to the list. Now let's look at this some of examples. Last 3 weeks, I released this quiz on my community on YouTube channel. Once again, if you're not following me on YouTube, please do subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. And every day, go to the community section. I release quiz every day. It will help you in your writing. So let's see the performance of these students. I received 10 votes out of the respondents. Look at the prescriptions here. The first prescription, look at how it is written. We use comma to separate the drug from the dosage. Use semicolon to separate this prescription from this prescription. And then we are using and to add this prescription to the list. That's just the rule. So you must use comma to separate each drug from its dosages. Look at, we use comma to separate this from this. We use a comma to separate this from this. And we use a comma to separate this from this. So that's how to write prescription in OET writing. Meaning, for this option, this is the correct answer. But if you can see, most persons, they chose this, which is actually wrong. Now look at this prescription. This prescription, the clarity of this prescription is not clear to the reader because the principle, the rule is not followed. Here, there is no comma separating this prescription from the dosage. And this person is using a comma to separate one prescription from another, which is very wrong. So this is not how to write prescription. The right way to write prescription is this first prescription. Now look at this prescription here. This person used comma, separate this, separate this. In fact, the punctuation is totally just wrong here. And 10% chose this. This one now, well, this person used semicolon to separate each prescription from another, but did not use a comma to separate the drug from the dosage, although the person still went ahead and added a semicolon here, which is wrong. As long as you're not adding using and, no need adding this semicolon here again. Now let's look at this one. This I released this one a week ago. Complete this prescription correctly. Mr. Jones is currently on, look at this prescription, Ramipre 5 milligram daily, metformin 500, and so on. If you look at here, the drug, the name of the drug is not separated from the dosages with a comma, and each prescription is not separated. Each prescription is not separated with a semicolon. So this is not correct. Look at this prescription too. The name of the drugs, they are not separated from the dosages. This is also wrong. Although each prescription, this prescription is separated using a semicolon, which is okay. And here you will now use and, which is okay. Just that the drugs, they are not separated by comma. Look at this prescription. Yes, this is the correct prescription. Jones is currently on Ramipre, 5 milligram daily, semicolon, metformin, 500 milligram BD, and aspirin, 75 milligram daily, full stop. This is the correct prescription. If you can see the performance now, there is an improvement. The first one I showed was 3 weeks ago. This is a week ago. Although some persons are not still getting it right. Look at this other prescription. This is totally wrong too. Now, let's look at this prescription here. This one says choose the correct prescription. He takes metformin, aspirin, sotalol, and clopidogrel. In a situation where the reader does not need the dosages of the drug, you just want the reader to be aware of the drug the patient is taking. Sometimes in your writing, depending, I won't start explaining all those details now, but sometimes the reader might not need adding the dosages will be irrelevant to the reader, will be adding irrelevant information. In that case, that means you are listing the names of the drugs. In that case, you don't use semicolon. You just use comma to separate metformin, aspirin, sotalol. In the last one, you not put, because you're using and here, no need for comma again. But this is wrong because this person is using semicolon to separate. This is wrong. Let's look at this one. He takes metformin 500 milligram. Here, the person is adding some of the dosages, but is not using a comma to separate the name of the drug from the dosage. So this is also wrong. He takes metformin, aspirin, sotalol, and clopidogrel. This statement is the correct statement. So when the dosages are not needed, just use comma to separate each drug from the other. Okay, this is, he takes metformin, aspirin, sotalol. This would have been correct, but the person added comma here, whereas there is and here too. So this now makes this statement wrong. So I think that's what much we can take today. If you like my tutorials and you like my channel, please hit the subscribe button below, or you can hit this logo here, and you'll be subscribed to my channel, and also put on your notification bell. Anytime I release any video, you will be the first to be notified. If you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me through this. You can also visit my Instagram. If you are on Instagram, this is my Instagram name. You can visit me on Instagram, on Twitter, and this is my blog site. You have a lot of useful materials that can help you to pass. Thank you, guys.